I'd take away that there's plenty of room for discussion on the issue. We saw in the little polling that when we came in there, 33% were just unsure of what was going on and what their decision should be, and that went down to 14%. So when you talk about it, folks start making decisions. My whole point is that throughout the process, both on the state level and then when it comes to the local level, we got to have everyone involved in the discussion because it's going to affect everybody.
Under the status quo, what the state says to every school district outside of Chicago is we're just going to pay your pension costs. So at the Illinois Policy Institute, we calculated what that subsidy really was. The state didn't do that. The state just writes a check to TRS for whatever they say they need. Well, what we find is that well-to-do school districts, places like Northbrook, Wilmette, by far are getting a much higher per-pupil subsidy for their pension costs than is Springfield or especially a lot of downstate and rural school districts.
Shifting the cost of the districts pays the yearly cost. What still is unpaid is this huge $83 billion that the state owes. And our members that I represent, 131,000 teachers across the state, really are concerned about this and want to help. But we want the state to say that they are actually going to make these payments going forward, not just, well, we'll pay them, because they have not.
Going forward, the school districts can't go into deficits. We can't print money. We can't go and make more loans out because our credit rating wouldn't allow it. So we're going to have to pay going forward, but you're still going to have, as Cinda pointed out, about $83 billion that you're going to have to figure out how to pay for, too.
And that's the state's...
That's the state's unfunded liability so far. So going forward, the districts will pay for it, but in the process, we're going to have to not pay for something else.
That's a state-funded subsidy of school districts that are perfectly capable of funding themselves. And not just that, but the cost of that subsidy is growing, which means that state aid to poorer school districts is being cut as a result. So we're cutting aid to poor districts so that we can maintain a subsidy that by and large benefits wealthy districts. It doesn't make any sense from an education funding point of view.
I think there are a lot of people who don't understand the issues, and tonight was a way to show what could happen if the districts have to pay the pension cost.
If we took on the full 8% the state's talking about, it'd be an additional $7.2 million to our budget.
And that's tacked on to the already 8-point-something.
Yeah, our ed fund right now, as we're going forward, and it's going to change because we haven't voted on the budget yet, but our ed fund as of today, FY13, is looking at about an $8.4 million deficit. So just add 7 onto that.
Look, there are school districts across the country that contract with independent firms to do things like remove trash, clean buildings, prepare food for their students. There are not huge safety concerns. In fact, what they're getting is better food or better services at a lower price often. A lot of school districts in Illinois can't do simple things like that right now because the state so heavily regulates or even prevents them from doing those common sense fiscal initiatives.
We've been tightening belts for years. I've been on the board for 2 budget cycles now, and I've voted to cut millions and millions of dollars, and I'm going to continue to cut millions of dollars. We are tightening our belts. It comes down to educate the kids that we have to have a certain level of funding, and we're already dipping below that level, which is why we have larger class sizes, we have fewer teachers, and so the belts are pretty tight, and as we keep tightening, we're going to do more cuts. It's going to have to be that way.
Without a real discussion of funding that affects education and pensions, we're doing this backwards.
Well, it's an engaging debate. Everybody's got a lot of things to say. Nobody has any real solution for how the state is going to be able to afford teacher pension costs without hiking taxes. And the people of Illinois can't afford, they don't want tax hikes right now. So the state's going to have to think more creatively financially, and so are school districts.
A guaranteed funding, graduated funding plan means that you pay your taxes based upon how much you make. So the more you make, the more you pay. That's what we do for the federal government. That's what we should do in Illinois. It actually would generate the amount of money that's needed and would help many of our citizens across the state who are having trouble making payments.
Taxpayers can only afford to pay so much, and right now, if we're paying more for simple support services, if we're paying more for sidewalk maintenance, if we're paying more for school construction than we need to, that's less money that can go to the classroom.
I think what's probably going to happen, and this is just my guessing, is it will probably be a staggered move from the state to the local level, because we've seen that the state is not going to be able to or be willing to pay for it going forward. And like I mentioned during the discussion, when the president, the speaker, and the governor all agree on something, it's probably going to happen. I just hope that when it does, it is trickled down. We're not going to have that huge hole right off the bat, and that the state allows us to work with it in the best way we can.